ready to get started. And Summer, will you call roll, please?
Commissioner Patterson?
Here.
Commissioner Norwood?
Here.
Commissioner Baker?
Here.
Commissioner Roberts?
Here.
Commissioner Stallings?
Here.
Commissioner Dennis, did not see her, and Mayor Mason.
Here.
You have a quorum.
All right. Item number 2, at the Commissioner's request, discuss any item of concern on the regular session agenda. Does anybody have anything they want to discuss?
Yes, Mayor, I wanted to look at item 6.
I was just kidding. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Which one?
6.2.
6.2.
I just wanted to get a little bit more clarification,
Yes, I think,
definition of that.
Melissa, Mandy, you are the czar, or I should come up with a better term than that. You are the point person from the city of Enid on financial disclosure requirements.
Like czar, actually.
It's the, see if we can open that up, I'll look at the last sentence on that paragraph.
Can you pull up the ordinance, Kent, please?
Okay, let's see. The last paragraph, that last sentence, I can read it. It says, "It is hereby declared to be the intention of the city of Enid, that is in section of the Enid Municipal Code, would have adopted as such unconstitutional, illegal, or invalid sentence clause, section of part not being included." I just wanted to get some clarification on that when I seen unconstitutional, so.
That's just standard language that we include in all of our ordinances, that in the event that our ordinance is declared unconstitutional, it's not the intent that we would have adopted something unconstitutional. It's just general language that we include in all of the ordinances as a precaution.
Okay, that just kind of caught my eye, so I said, hey, we're talking about finances here, so I know you all will protect this, but I just wanted to get some clarity on that.
Or if any one sentence was
Yeah, or if any part.
taken out to
yes,
be
unconstitutional. It's kind of a severability, so if part of it becomes unconstitutional, but part of it's still constitutional, it was of our intent to adopt the constitutional part, but not the unconstitutional part.
Okay,
But yeah,
all right, thank you.
sure. Are there any other questions about the financial disclosure ordinance that I can clear up for y'all?
I don't think so. You're going to talk about that a little more in detail, aren't you?
Yes, at the meeting.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions on the main agenda? No? All right, item number 3, 3.1, update on the water treatment plant and respond to the Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality Notice of Violation. Brooke?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight I want to give you all an update on the wastewater treatment plant upset and the enforcement actions associated with that. A little bit of summary. On May 20th, we had a major biological upset in the wastewater treatment plant, resulting in the discharge of partially treated wastewater, which led to a fish kill in Skeleton Creek. At that point, DEQ got involved and issued notice of violations and other enforcement actions against the city. A little bit of what happened. During standard routine testing and sampling on May 20th, 2025, wastewater treatment plant staff learned that there was a major upset in the treatment plant. Denitrification, essentially the bugs in the plant were no longer working and eating the things and cleaning the water like they should. From that point, city staff initiated an investigation into the situation and basically determined where the violation came from and next steps to take from that violation. That led to the DEQ investigation. They had reports of foam, dead fish, and discoloration in Skeleton Creek downstream from the wastewater plant. They investigated and confirmed that we had an ammonia removal failure, which is a major OPDS violation. Then on June 18th, 2025, DEQ issued notice of violation, or NOV, to the city regarding that fish kill incident. That NOV requires the city to file many corrective actions and report within 15 days what we are going to do to address the situation and how we are going to move forward to assure it doesn't reoccur. Some of the key findings in the NOV showed that ammonia exceeded permit levels for several days. That was caused by the death of those biological bugs in the biological process in the plant. They determined that there was a low dissolved oxygen in the discharge and elevated surfactants, which harmed aquatic life, leading to the fish kill. That is a violation of multiple clean water and state laws, and as such, they recommended immediate corrective actions to prevent a reoccurrence. Shortly after that, DEQ issued a consent order to the city of Enid. That order was issued to address the treatment failures and the biological problems we had with the plant. It had several stipulations. The plant must develop quack-focused pretreatment controls, review our technically based local limits, which we were already in the process of working with a contractor to get that process going. And then it also assessed a $10,000 administrative penalty to the city. It was determined that through our investigation that the plant was killed due to a large influx of toxic chemicals, also known as quaternary ammonium compounds. Through our investigation, we learned that Mid-Continent Packaging was the contributor of those toxic chemicals to our wastewater system. That company produces cleaners, sanitizers that are high in those toxic chemicals, and that those chemicals are very detrimental to our treatment process. And we determined that improper control of their processes and of their discharge allowed those to enter our sewer system. Some of the key findings of the NOV are that on May 20th, there were extremely high QAC or toxic chemical levels at the facility discharge. We also noticed, city staff also noticed heavy foaming and chemical odors at the lift station in which that industrial user discharges into. We had high elevations of those chemicals all the way until approximately June 3rd. And the problem with that, the cause of that was inadequate pretreatment by that company and poor waste segregation. Basically, they weren't containerizing and disposing of these toxic chemicals in the manner laid forth in their permit. Their discharge violated prohibitions against interference with their permit and led to a permit violation. Their permit states they cannot discharge any toxic pollutants into our sewer system, and they have to work to prevent any harmful release of that stuff and segregate it, as I said before. A notice of violation was issued by the city to Mid-Continent on July 22nd for these toxic discharges. The notice of violation documented and cited multiple operational and documentation failures, and emphasized that according to their permit, any quack detection in that discharge is a violation of the permit. That NOV required the company to submit detailed chemical and waste handling information. Part of the administrative order issued to them after that NOV, we issued an administrative order to that company due to the toxic chemical discharges and noncompliance of their permit. That order mandated strict corrective actions and sought to recover costs of $38,168, the cost that we had to spend to get the plant back operational. That includes the $10,000 penalty from DEQ. Some of the corrective actions required in that consent order are: the city will lead influent monitoring and implementation plans. The company must segregate all their toxic chemicals. They need to make sure that their equipment and hose and transfer systems are all in a good state of repair, none are leaking. They have to ensure that any floor drains, that are in the area where those chemicals reside are capped or plugged, so they cannot discharge into our sewer system. It also stated some documentation that we were going to require moving forward, submission of different lists, procedures, and products that they have on site. It also required they develop a segregation and best management practice system for use and disposal of those chemicals. City is going to verify this through regular visits and site visits and monitoring of all discharges from that facility. On November 21st, we issued the company a new significant industrial user discharge permit. That includes more specific chemical monitoring requirements, expanded reporting obligations. It really tells us the company can't just tell us that they're containerizing these wastes and moving them off. We have to have manifests. We have to have all the documentation associated with removing those wastes from that premises and disposing of them in the proper manner, which does not mean going down anybody's sewer system, by the way. It will also enhance best management practices to address any spill prevention, chemical containment, and systems maintenance is there. The city, that permit will remain in effect until June 1st, 2026. Sorry, there's a typo there. At that time, the city will have received our T-bill, which is technically based local limits study results, which will essentially tell us how much chemicals we can treat in our treatment plant, which is a very small amount, and how much each significant industrial user can discharge into our system. So that way we can keep them honest versus via sampling, and then we know exactly what numbers we can deal with in the plant. Consequences of non-compliance for this can be pretty strict. Any discharge of these toxic chemicals in the future may result in a suspension of the discharge permit, also additional administrative and enforcement actions. This corrective order will remain active until all corrective actions have been validated by city staff. Some of the long-term preventative measures that came out of this is when we were doing our investigation, we came up with some new standard operating procedures to keep toxic chemicals out of the wastewater treatment plant in particular. One of those measures is we're going to be doing increased sampling all over the town, make sure there aren't any of these chemicals coming from anybody, let alone just one company. We have new standard operating procedures for the wastewater treatment facility. In the event that these chemicals are identified and detected in our sewer system, the influent will immediately be diverted to a holding pond, wherein it will reside until the chemical levels are lowered enough that we can channel it to our wastewater treatment plant and treat it properly and discharge into Skeleton Creek. We feel pretty confident about our operating procedures moving forward to identify and address any of these chemical slug loads before they make it into our system. But anything's possible. The best thing is we're going to work to make sure we have all of our permits good, all of our significant industrial users are following the guidelines, and then we're going to bolster our pretreatment assessment, reassess and bolster our pretreatment to assure that these toxic chemicals do not make it
Hey, Brooke,
into our, yes, sir.
how is the chemical bypassed and helped until we can determine whether or not we can take that chemical?
We've got a very large holding pond next to the wastewater treatment plant. We will literally divert it to that, and that water will sit in there. There are some different chemicals, such as NutriQuat, that you can put into that water that will coagulate to those chemicals and cause them to float to the bottom so we can pull the clean water off the top. So we can segregate that. The key there is to not let that water those chemicals get into our treatment plant. You know, as I said before, it kills the bugs, which are the biological organisms that they eat different items and substances in the wastewater. They secrete something else, another bug eats it, and through that we get clean water, and we get, low phosphorus, low ammonia, and all those things go down so we can safely discharge into the creek.
And how many days could we go that we could hold that water?
Well, that's a good question. That really depends on the amount of water that comes in. Once the pond is full, it's full. And so, there are some environmental factors, temperature, the amount of influx. Once we determine that the sewer water doesn't have any chemicals in it, we will immediately divert it back into the wastewater treatment plant for treatment.
Okay.
So really, that just varies based on so many factors. It's hard to just give an actual amount of time.
Okay.
So Brooke, has Mid-Continent been cooperative during this process, pushback, or how's that dialogue gone?
I'll go ahead and address that. Yes, they've been very cooperative. They still have the right to their hearing, which I believe is
Yes,
being
sir.
scheduled, and an appeal. So that will occur sometime probably in the next, the hearing will probably be in December, I'm guessing, and the hearing, or the appeal might be in January. So yes, they have. They're a valuable company here in town, so we're certainly not here to say that they're to say anything negative about them, but this discharge, we've done quite a bit of work, and so when we have those processes, they'll get their day there, and then we'll see what comes out of those processes. So yes, is the short answer. Yes, they've been.
As Gerald mentioned,
I have a follow-up question.
yes, sir.
Where's the hearing held? Is it in our?
The administrative hearing we've talked about today, it'll be in this building. It'll probably be likely downstairs or in one of our available conference rooms.
Okay.
And as Gerald mentioned, we, Melissa Blanton, the city attorney, and I are working together to try to pin down a date for the administrative hearing. And after that, depending on how that goes, there will be another formal appeal with the Environmental Enforcement Board. And from there, we'll just see where it all goes. But they have been cooperative. We've gone out, I've gone out since then with our environmental specialist to tour their facility and to take samples and whatnot, and they've been utmost professionals and worked well with us.
Yeah, and I would further say that, on their behalf, they will dispute some of these things. We've had significant conversations, but to move the process along, we've had to do what we had to do, DEQ had to do what they had to do, and then we'll follow the rest of our process and go through the hearing and appeal and see what happens.
Unfortunately, as a regulatory authority on these things, we've got the state and the EPA that have their regulations we must follow, and we've got to have everyone in our system follow our regulations as well.
I think it's also important to note, we have several significant industrial users.
Correct.
And so whatever processes are in place now and that are changing, it will be changing for everybody as new permits are issued, and especially when we get the results of that technically based local limit study that we'll get next year sometime.
Correct, yes. We will not treat Mid-Continent any different than we would any other significant industrial user. We're going to take samples from all of them, be fair and even with each one of them.
I guess I'm confused why the city got fined when we've determined that there's a potential.
I can answer that quickly because we exceeded our ammonia, is it ammonia?
Yes, we
levels
exceeded
of
our
our permit.
ammonia in our permit.
And we did that because simply the bugs or the nitrification was killed in our plant.
Yes.
So therefore, the biological process that was in place that normally breaks down ammonia and the other solids there and treats the water could not, well, they were dead. They were completely
were just
gone.
dead.
So it was a very, I will say, a stressful event. I appreciate the Stover Group and Brooke, you and your team. That was a stressful about a week. We ended up holding water for about as long as we could, 3, 4, 5 days. Reactivated some areas to hold water, and then certainly we had to resume discharging. So what DEQ, our permit is with DEQ, and DEQ is a regulatory agency for the state, so they hold us responsible. And it's our job to permit and our significant industrial users and ensure that they're following a pretreatment process that does not end up sending toxic pollutants to our plant. So that's why we got fined, and that's why we're held accountable, because again, we are the city. We are the we end up being responsible for everything, but part of our job, too, is to hold our significant industrial users accountable, too. We have learned ourselves better how to handle these. I think you talked about diversion methods, NutriQuat. I'd never even heard of NutriQuat before this event, so it's been very helpful. We've actually used it since then, so I think when we were concerned about things, so that's why. And tonight, what's on the agenda is for you to review and hopefully approve the consent order, because the real truth is that's what DEQ has spent time talking to us, and we think is reasonable, because we have certainly not disputed that fish were killed. There's findings of facts in there, and that ultimately we're responsible. So the rest of this story is just kind of tell you the rest of the story about what our job is, to hold our significant industrial users accountable as well. So they have responsibility to not introduce pollutants to our system that kills the plant.
Will this penalty affect us in any other way?
I don't think so, not that I'm aware of. Certainly, two things: a penalty, and a plan to make sure it doesn't happen again. On the agenda is our plan in the letter that's been drafted largely by Brooke and Melissa in a response. So what happens is, assuming that you take positive action tonight, we will, the mayor will sign off on that consent order, and we'll send in that response. Similarly, we will also process the $10,000 penalty to be paid soon, within 30 days of execution of that order. And gosh, where was I going? So that's what will happen next with DEQ. Then they're going to look at that and see if it's sufficient in their eyes. I think it will be. If it's not, they'll tell us, and we'll have to revise it. Their interest is in they want to know the same thing that you guys want to know, and that I want to know, and Brooke wants to know. What can we do to keep this from happening again? We don't want it to happen. It's not good for us. It's negative for the city of Enid, because newspaper stories come out, they show pictures of dead fish, and it says the city of Enid's responsible, and we are responsible. But it's not the whole story. So anyway, gosh, I'm carrying on, and Melissa's getting ready to tell me that less is better. So
If I could add, we're very confident in our new standard operating procedures and our reactive procedures in the event that we identify another slug-loaded chemicals in our system. We think we can head it off for it before it kills our plant, treat it properly, and move forward.
cool.
Very confident in my environmental specialist and wastewater staff, so I think we're going to do well moving forward.
And Brooke, to be clear, we have the ability to go out and pull samples directly out of the sewer system of each one of these facilities before it gets into the main sewer line.
Correct. And in this instance, that is exactly what we did. We had a
Exactly.
single service line discharging into a manhole from that facility. We were able to get a representative sample of exactly what they're discharging into our system. And it was very high in the toxic chemicals.
Okay. Any questions?
Any additional?
Concerns? We appreciate what y'all have done.
Thank you, guys.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but Youth Build is here tonight, and so, gosh, you guys are getting to see everything from, what was it you were saying earlier, Melissa? Traffic tickets and stuff, and
Tickets, food trucks,
environmental issues.
fish kills.
Fish kills, there we go.
Fish kill. There's a word you didn't think you were going to hear when you got up this morning, right? Fish kill. But, Brooke, I do appreciate everything you and your team done. That was a challenging couple weeks, more for y'all even than us, but I take, it bothers me when the city's automatically accused of something long before the facts are ever out. So.
Me too.
That's why I think it's very important that you come and explain that tonight. So,
All right, if no additional questions, I'll have a seat.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that was helpful. Item 3.2, presentation on accessory dwelling units. Jacqueline?
Yes, okay. So you ask and you shall receive. This is on what ADUs look like for the city of Enid. So a little refresher on what an ADU is. It's a legal permitted secondary dwelling unit regulated by local ordinance and building codes. What an ADU is not: an informal dwelling unit, an unpermitted structure, or a subdivision of a lot. So you just can't have your little utility shed and just say, yes, it's habitable. There are processes. So this is the definition that we're proposing for Title 11, Section 7. Our definitions: a smaller independent residential dwelling unit located on the same lot as a detached accessory structure from the principal structure as a standalone single-family dwelling unit. So what that means: these are going to be your only allowed use types of ADUs, your detached and your converted garages that are, again, not attached to the primary structure. Because if it's attached to the primary structure, it's considered another dwelling unit in that same structure, so that's where you get your two families and others. That meets those current definitions that we have. So how we're going to regulate it is going to be permitted use or use by review in our zoning districts. So we have permitted use, which is allowing an ADU as a use by right in specific zoning districts with an administrative approval process. With a use by review, requires additional review and approval by a designated board or boards, which is usually Planning Commission and you all. That includes a public hearing and the discussion of potential impacts to the area and ensuring this aligns with zoning objectives and the comprehensive plan. So what we're proposing that they would look like here in Enid is a use by review in your more restrictive zoning district, which is your R2 single family, and your R4 residential duplex and two-family dwelling units, because those are just single structures in the size of the lots. Now, permitted by right is going to be your agriculture, your residential estate, your R4A, which is your four-family residential, your townhomes, and your R7 multifamily, where it's higher density. So we're going to go, you'll have a text amendment that shows all of this at some point, and that's going to be with each zoning district. It's going to have it in there, and then it's going to reference the supplemental section that will have all of these. These are there's 9 of them, I think, which is a lot less than Oklahoma City, which is 19 pages worth. So, really? Yes. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. So we have 9 bullets. Basically, it's a combination between Oklahoma City, Norman, Abilene, Texas, Dallas, and Bentonville, Arkansas. Those were the main reference communities that we used. They shall not be sold separately from the primary structure under one ownership. ADUs or the land on which an ADU is on shall not be subdivided or separated in ownership from that of the primary structure or the land on which the primary structure is on. That basically means if you build an ADU, you cannot later on go and split it off to be its own independent structure without a primary structure. The next one is must be built to the current adopted edition of the International Residential Code, as in RC Title IX of Code of Ordinances. You're adding a note so that it's open to the public that they know that typical storage sheds and accessory structures will not meet the minimum foundation and or structural requirements for the code for a dwelling use. We are constructing a tip sheet to help if you're wanting to convert those, what you can do with that. So that's what this is referencing, is seeing the City of Enid Community Development ADU construction tip sheet. That will be to help those that want to convert those structures, like your detached garages and sheds. Must have a permanent source of heat to maintain a temperature of 68 degrees. That's a typical IRC requirement anyways, but reiterating, you need to have space heaters, that's required. And then must have 1 bathroom per IRC code. That is a different It also piggybacks to when we do a text amendment, we're also going to tweak the dwelling unit definition, adding a kitchenette and full bathrooms. You can already have bathrooms, but being considered a dwelling unit is also going to have your kitchens. So some of your sheds or workshops have bathrooms, but they don't have a kitchenette, or vice versa. In this case, you also have to have a bathroom is needed to be considered habitable.
Hey, Jacqueline, let me stop you for just a second and explain to Youth Built why we're doing this, just so you'll understand.
Yes, okay.
The city of Enid is growing substantially. We have a housing problem right now, a housing problem in that we don't have enough housing. We don't have enough affordable housing, right? The base is growing. They're getting more and more personnel out there. So the quickest thing that can stifle a community is not having additional enough housing for people that move in. So this is one way. This doesn't fix the problem, but it's one way that we've looked at that there are already buildings out back of existing houses that could be turned into one-room apartments, right? And that's what we're trying to do, change up some of the codes, set some regulations so that these property owners can go in, do this, follow these regulations, because we got to make sure that there's enough water on the property that'll furnish that there's heat, that the water lines won't freeze up. All those things that you want, remember we talked about in code, make sure that everything's safe. But that's why we're doing this, so that there will be additional affordable small housing for people out there. So it's not just something else that we're trying to do or come up with regulations. We're trying to figure this housing issue out. This is one small piece that will help. So that's why we're doing this, so you know.
Yes, so ADUs are also considered granny flats, your mother-in-law suites, your garage conversions that you see people living above a garage or in a garage. This is what this is. So more of the regulations: height shall not exceed that of the primary structure, shall not exceed the primary structure in total building footprint square footage. And that way it's not bigger, and it's more specifically on its footprint, not if it's gross floorage, because if you can make a house bigger, it looks like a ranch house. When you have a little shotgun house, looks a little odd. So that's why we did footprint. Shall be located in the rear yard. Part of the text amendment is also going to be clarifying what a rear yard is with illustrations. So when that text amendment comes, it will also assist in showing what a rear yard is to help clarify the definition of that. Shall not exceed 30% of the rear yard area. Again, you don't want a small lot. They can put it back there, but then they're just going to cover the whole lot, and it's going to be impervious surface, and it's just roof. So we want to make sure there's still that green space and that separation. Only one ADU per lot. That's just what most of the communities did. That can be changed, but this is what we're proposing. At least one paved park spot per ADU, and then shall be compatible with the primary structure, like color materials, patterns, roofing, and those items.
So paved, you mean cement?
Yes, or little pavers, like you can
Okay,
do
but
like little strips.
Gravel parking space would not be allowed?
Not how it's currently written. There can be provisions that we add for if it's a rear access off of an alley, we can say it's gravelled. But usually if it's gravelled and onto paved, we don't want someone having already a driveway approach and then put gravel down and that eat away at our road. So just, if you're gonna add it, you can add it onto the front and those kind of things. That's kind of the intent. But we could add a provision if you see fit to add off-alley access. We can have gravel. Yeah. Any other questions?
I do, I have one. Go ahead, Rob.
If someone wants to just build a shed or a workshop back there, do they have to come through you?
Yes. Yep. As long as if it's over 120 square feet.
If it's under 120 square feet, they don't have to come to you?
We do not require a permit for it.
Okay.
Yep.
Sure. Okay. My question is, I have a little bit of a concern about the part of the use by review. And I'm going to give you a scenario. If you have an individual that wants to do an ADU in a area where there's a HMO or a historical addition, and we know there's a 51% majority rule, how do we be able to work that out? You know, if an individual wants to do an ADU, but the majority say, hey, we don't want that back there. Does that apply? The 51% or more majority rule?
I'm going to have to research what that's
Because that does exist.
I would
And what
have-
is HMO versus HOA?
I mean, HOA,
Okay.
that's what I'm.
Oh, and an HOA.
Yeah. Yes,
So
I'm sorry.
we cannot enforce that. Now, there can be a petition for it. So if there is a petition put forth for that and it's presented to you, it is, again, y'all are the deciding body. So any covenants in those we can't enforce. We can take that in consideration, and that's going to be up to the final body for those that are reviewed.
As you
Yeah.
were researching this, you mentioned Abilene and Norman, Oklahoma City. Has there been much pushback in those cities as these have been adopted?
When I checked with Oklahoma City, and they adopted theirs back in May, they've only received 2 applications.
Oh, wow.
So they haven't received it this much influx as we were thinking, and so they don't really know. A lot of it is the concerns with the conversions at the moment of how to bring it up to code. So that's where we started looking out towards the West Coast, since they kind of started all this way before anybody out this way started thinking about it. So that's where we kind of got the construction tip sheet, was the help for the conversions.
Yeah, and you know, I'm in favor of it. I think this is a great idea. I just wanted to make sure that your department and code department, the development department, you know, has a way to be able to deal with it when the 51% majority rule comes up by use of review, you know, so we don't look like we're picking and choosing, you know.
Right.
We want to be fair to everyone.
I do think if there's an HOA, though, that we should probably try to respect that. If an addition, a historical society says, we're buying these homes, we want them to look this way, I'm going to invest my money in it, and they vote that they do not want one of those in one of the backyards, I think we ought to probably follow their guidelines whenever possible.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
I know we had that happen.
We did.
Not exactly like this, but we had someone put up a big metal building in the back of
In Kenwood, yeah.
in the historical addition, and we required them to take it down.
Yeah.
You know, because,
Yeah.
so, you know, there's a reason people purchase in an HOA,
Yeah.
because I want my property value to stay at a certain level. And so I think when possible, we ought to really try to follow the HOA, or if it's a historical district, follow those. Now, I don't know. there's-
And if it's in the historical district, it will go to the HPC first before it comes to you guys. So they can definitely meet that last bullet of meeting the primary structure, likeness, and characteristics of what's unique and makes it a contributing property.
And doesn't this come before the MAP,
Yep. Yes.
the board, before it
Yes,
comes to us?
it will. And that will definitely
Okay.
compare with,
Yeah.
they'll be the recommending body, and they'll look at it to the zoning code and the comprehensive plan.
Okay. All right. Just trying to save you a headache.
No, you're good.
Will the 30% max per backyard yard area, will that also, I guess, prevent flooding from, I guess, not having enough ground to soak up rainwater?
So, okay, my understanding, we don't have engineering here, but we don't currently have any stormwater concerns for residential at the moment. We don't have those requirements. From a planning aspect, the 30% is mostly for the rooftops. So we look at stuff from a 2D version. So if you have too much roof, you're going to be encroaching. You're going to want more space. So certain districts, if you have the certain setbacks, et cetera, the 30%, make sure you're not exceeding that and encroaching on
More of
that
an
feel of like a,
aesthetic.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So
Well,
that's,
what I like about this, besides the fact that it adds affordable housing to our area, but I also like the fact that somebody can't throw up some curtains in a storage shed and call it habitable, because there are people desperate for a place to live, and I would hate to see them living in a place that's not really acceptable.
yes, yes, because, yeah, the permanent source of heat is huge. We don't want you putting a propane heater in your, in your shed, you know, there's CO2, some issues there.
And Commissioner, on the flooding issue, I know we also have setback distances, because we've got into it before where they set them so close that a roof drains right over into someone else's property, and we don't allow that anymore. It's got to be back
Correct.
far enough that that water drains off on their, now, it doesn't say it doesn't go on across, I understand that, but I do think because of some of those setbacks in the back and on the side, they can't just dump a roof full of water right over on someone else's property.
Yes, yes.
So-
And it will meet the 3-foot setback for an accessory structure, so they will still be at the buffer. So there won't be any, that kind of runoff. And we won't allow permanent structures in floodplains. So that will be reviewed.
I like it. I think it's a good.
I do too.
A good chance. I mean, it sounds like we still have to work out a few little bugs here and there, and I'm sure after even we pass it, we'll have some challenges that
Yeah.
come up. But at the end of the day, I think it can help our housing problem. I think it gives an extra income to some people maybe that could use that. And I really like the idea about additional parking, paved parking, because we don't want a bunch of stuff out in the street. You know, that causes an issue in itself. So, anyway, I think it's good.
I do have one more question that I just thought of. The parking space, does it have to be accessible from the front of the house or from the front of the ADU? Or could it, could the requirement also be, or could it be acceptable to have from the alley?
We can add it from the alley if you wish it to be. If it's going to be a converted garage in the back of those older platted areas that do have alleys and the alleys are accessible, we do run into the issue that our alleys are not maintained. So them being able to obtain access is questionable. But we can work on discussing possible requirements to have them either gravel all of it or some way of making it where it is obtainable for them to have that access.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, comments, anybody? Going? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Very much. All right, item 3.3, update on the community cultural celebration. Mr. Scheidel, Dan Scheidel. Before you even start, let me say, I was so impressed with this. I made it and got to go to that, and it was a very good outing. So,
Was.
yeah, you were there.
Yeah.
I'll just say that most of the committee is here today, and how serendipitous it is to have the youth build in the room.
I thought you'd like that.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I didn't know you'd set that up. That was pretty neat.
Well, that's one thing that so impressed me is the contribution from CDSA Youth Build and the small groups, the bigger group. You guys were all over it, had lots of good ideas, and were a very valuable part of the day, don't you think?
That's why they're here tonight. Yeah.
I would like to recognize the cultural committee who actually put this thing together. Got a chance to
You told me it was all you, Dan.
What?
You told me you'd done all that.
Well, no, I did not. You'll see on the very last page of the report that it was all of these folks put it together. As you well know, it takes a a village to raise a child, right? And it takes a group like this to pull it all together. So I wanted to say thank you to them. And I've got a PowerPoint, and I know we got like 45 minutes, right? So we've got a little bit of time left.
yeah,
It's not going to take us that long. I won't go that long. So.
I'll let you know when you're done.
Yeah, okay. So you got the timer going. So the event just 2 months ago. Can you believe that? Less than 2 months ago. And I would have to say the Youth Build, they were there in full force. And got to say thank you so much for having them involved with this, because they brought a lot of energy. They brought a lot of different ideas to the table, and you'll see those that are salted and peppered throughout this presentation. Also wanted to thank Commissioner Baker for, one, getting us on the agenda, and then also for moderating. He did an excellent job moderating this, and so we're very thankful for his work. But it was a great event. We had a lot of people that came out from the community. Businesses were involved, and the mayor was there. Commissioner Norwood was there, and we just was very thankful that everyone that could make it was part of it. And so there was good representation from the community, and it really kind of focused on cultural heritage. It focused on really trying to bring us all together to look at what we can do together and what the future is all about. Some of the information in the report itself, you'll find that there's more detail in the report. This, of course, the PowerPoint that I put together with the committee, it really is kind of a high-level overview of this report, and it really talks about the diversity in our community, the assets that they bring, the key findings that we gleaned from the event, and then some recommendations. So we're pretty excited about it. Very limited regional and demographic information, but there's a little bit in there just kind of give you a flavor of the different races and different cultures that we have in our community. And then when we start looking at how important it is to look at our cultural assets and the diversity of our community through the different cultures that are in our community, they just make our community that much richer. And it's we're just blessed to have them. The day, if you were there, the day was great. We started off with cultural presentations, so we got a chance to learn a little bit more about the different cultures in our community. And then we went into lunch. There were keynote speakers. J.C. Watts came in and spoke to Youth Build and the rest of the folks that were there. I thought he did a super job. He did a great job. He just knocked it out of the ballpark. If he was a baseball player, man, that'd be a triple play. But you know, he was just a blessing to us, and I think also the mayor from Mayor Sandoval from
Midwest City.
Bethany, right?
Bethany, that's right.
Bethany, she came in and she did a great job as well. And the mayor was awesome, working with Youth Build and a number of others in the community, talking about local government. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But the key areas that we really looked at were the ones that bubbled up in a survey that we did throughout the community. We had about 103, 104 different responses to the survey. And the items that came up were on page 7, 8, 9, and 10. When we look at community and culture, housing, local government, and then care, compassion and care, health care, dental care, elder care, and child care. So we'll be talking a little bit about that. But I think some of the things that came back from that whole summit, it really was that we want to celebrate diversity. We want to engage our young people all the way up to our seniors in the community and really unify with our arts, with our food, with our culture. That was one of the great things about meeting with this group, is that we would have lunch from different cultures. So we had soul food one time, we had Hispanic food, we had just all kinds of different food. I brought pizza. But hey, it was still good. But I think that the shared learning together and just getting to know them a lot better, and then actually working together is what it's all about. There are some issues in regards to the communication gap, whether it's generational or whether it's a language barrier. And again, those are highlighted throughout this. So culture and community cultural events. So a couple of things that really kind of resonate is that we want to build trust. We want to work with each other and build trust. And we need to create those platforms and those different events and maybe some different initiatives that helps to build that and really increase the interactions or the ability to interact with different cultures. Again, building that awareness about the different cultures. A lot of people in our community they're not aware of all the Marshallese that are in our community, or Hispanic, or the blacks, or American Indians. I mean, it's one of those things that everybody just, hey, I'm over here, I live over here, I stay over here, and I'm not really aware of what's all going on in our community. And I think they're missing out on some rich diversity and exposure to those things. So talked about events and special initiatives, and hopefully you'll all agree with that when we get to that. Inclusivity, when we start talking about whether it's younger folks in our community, whether it's Vance Air Force Base, whether it's the different sectors in our community, in the business or education or manufacturing, the list goes on. And it really is something that we want everyone together. Housing, that bubbled up. We were just talking about ADUs, is that what it is, ADUs? ADUs, and that's great because this is really something that a lot of people had talked about. It always shows up in all the surveys that we do. Every time we go out and we do some research and gather information, not only from United Way, but CDSA and other organizations and nonprofits, it always bubbles up to the top. And some of the areas that that they had identified was income segregation, home ownership, barriers. ALICE, you're going to hear a lot about ALICE. ALICE are the people that fall just above the poverty level. All the way up to 200% above the poverty level, all the way up to a stable lifestyle. Okay, ALICE is asset limited, income constrained, employed. Those are the ones that are living paycheck to paycheck. Those are people that are just above the poverty line. And it could take a flat tire, engine blow up, whatever it might be. Your car breaks down, you're not able to get to work, you're not able to make your payments, you lose your house, you lose your apartment, just fill in the blank. So one of the things that United Way is all across the state, they're focusing on how do we engage employers, how do we engage our local government and really address the asset limited, income constrained, employed. And those are things that are ongoing conversations. And I think this also can help raise up some of the issues in that and address it. Affordable, accessible, attainable housing, talked a little bit about that. Rent to own, financial education opportunities. I think maybe doing some education would help as well in the community, and then really working with businesses and banks to collaborate and trying to make things a little bit more accessible for those in our community. Local government, again, Mayor, you were there. You had talked to a lot of different folks in regards to the perceptions sometimes that people have about government, right? Especially the city council, right? Language barriers are always an issue. One of the things that they talked about is maybe a city liaison that's multilingual, which, those are hard people to find, right? Yeah. But that was just one of the things. And then youth engagement. I think Youth Build were very vocal about that and talking about maybe some type of a group that could work with the city and maybe a youth advisory group. But that's just another idea that they had brought up. Cultural differences, there's always those limited connections with the officials. Having this forum and having them actually here, what a blessing that is. And so I think giving them the opportunity, and maybe not just Youth Build, but also other cultures, maybe invite them to join us for the committee meetings and maybe study hearings, and just like you had done with them, explain to them why this is important and what the impacts are. And I think that makes a big difference when we're engaging. And then we also talked about transportation barriers. Transportation is always an issue, so we were looking at how do we partner with other nonprofits, faith-based collaborations, government, and then visibility, again, with you in the community and others in the community that can build those partnerships. Compassion care, when we start looking at health care, dental care, elder care, child care, it's access, it's affordability. Again, those that are Alice families, you think about it, nationally, they spend 7 to 10% of their income on child care. In Enid and Northwest Oklahoma, it's 25%. That's a lot of money. You think about it. That's when you think about asset limited, income constrained employed. They're living paycheck to paycheck, and it's hard to find a good daycare sometimes or an education system, Educare, in the community where it's affordable. And so we're hoping that we can start addressing some of those things. But again, the cost for access, for whether it's insurance and the complexities of dealing with insurance, and of course now with who knows where we're going next with healthcare, but that's going to be a challenge. Language differences, the barriers there. I know that a number of our health providers and institutions are providing more bilingual, multilingual services so that they can engage the different cultures. And again, I think part of it is that there's time constraints. So a lot of people have time constraints, whether or not they can get to the doctor, how they get to the doctor or the dentist. And have you ever tried to, well, I shouldn't say ever, have you tried to get an appointment with your doctor or a dentist lately? How long does it take you to get in? I don't know about you, but sometimes it takes weeks, if not months. And you could die in between that time. Clearer communication, I think, again, with all of us, just having better communication. It just comes down to communication. A lot of it does. So some of the recommendations that came from the organization or from the summit and the culture committee, after really kind of taking all this information and winnowing it down. You'll have some more detail on page 11, but just some suggestion. Multicultural Coalition, we started talking about maybe quarterly meetings with city representation. Maybe a commissioner would consider serving on that, or maybe Mayor, you could appoint one of the commissioners. I don't know, but anyway, or it would be someone on staff that could be a part of that, would be helpful. Explore opportunities with local cultures, organizations. City outreach, expanding the multilingual communication, whether it's through flyers or neighborhood outreach, and maybe going in different communities or different cultures in our community that we could be doing different outreach projects in those areas. But it's more than just the digital channels that we use, the social media and everything else. A signature multicultural event. I know the city has done those before. I think a lot of people would like to see them back. And I think that's something that we could work on. Cultural workshops would be great as well. Education. Partnering with housing agencies, nonprofits, City of Enid to host workshops. Again, educational workshops that maybe can help people learn about financial investments or how much it's going to take for them to get a loan, and maybe try to help them with low-income loans or low-interest loans. Community-based cultural competent programs, mobile clinics, transportation study, and then we want to make sure that we're measuring the impact that we're having. So some of the things that we talked about, we wanted to think about maybe launching some kind of coalition, and this would be this next year. And so develop a coalition, first meeting, start talking about a plan, looking at engagement. One of the things that we can do is really start looking at things that are already in the works, like Superhero Saturday. Superhero Saturday is part of CDSA, NOC, a lot of other partners that put that together, and I think all the cultures can come together for that. Grants and support systems for local projects, and then in the fall, maybe consider another summit. Maybe look at unity in the community or some other kind of multicultural party. So though this is the group, this is the committee, you'll find them on the very last page, on page 13. There's no reference to the number 13 or anything, it's just page 13, okay? So this is the group, and I just want to say thank you to them because they're the ones that put in all the hard work on this, and we're really proud of the report that we put together, and we're glad to have the opportunity to share with you and share with our community some of the things that I think are really positive about what we do, and I think some of the positive things that we can do moving forward. So be happy to answer any questions. I'm sure the committee would be happy to, and Youth Build can always answer questions as well. So, but thank you for your time, and I appreciate you. Yeah.
Anybody? Frank, I know you've got a comment.
Well, the only thing I want to say is, and I remember having this conversation with Donnie Childs the day of, is that, boy, there was such incredible energy that we were talking, said it'd be a shame if there wasn't some kind of plan going forward. Well, okay, thank you.
There you go.
Well done.
Yeah, well, thank you. And I would say we had about 180 individuals that were signed up to come. We had about 140, 150 people that actually made it. So we had really good feedback, and that was our first one. And I think the committee is very interested in continuing to pursue maybe the multicultural coalition. And I think that'll be great. I mean, we already see great impact that the Hispanic Coalition, the Micronesian Coalition have had, and I just think that, you know, having all of them together, working together, I think will just have a great impact on our community. So.
Sure. Okay. Well, Dan, I'll just say I commend you and the entire committee that put this together. It's kind of ironic that day. You'd asked me to come and be part of one of the breakout sessions. Either I didn't read it on the email, but I didn't know what time to show up. So I showed up the very first, right. And I'm so glad that I did.
I'm glad you did, yeah, thank you.
But for me, I've thought this for a long, long time, it seems like just the more we learn about other cultures, the more we have in common.
Right.
There's nothing to be fearful of. And while I was at this, I got to meet help me.
Mayor Sandoval.
Yes,
Oh,
yes.
yeah.
But also the Hispanic Coalition.
Oh, yeah.
And I'll be honest, they had some unique issues involving the city that I was not even aware of, had no clue, right? Got to go out to Autry-Tech, about 20 plus people there, and just fielded questions. And they had a lot of questions, a lot of good questions that I didn't necessarily know all the answers to, but it's nothing that we can't come back and find an answer. Yeah. So I commend you for doing that. I encourage you to continue to do that moving forward. I'll talk about Youth Build a little more later on in the program, but I had the opportunity to meet these guys, and it was just amazing. Just if you just show up, just how much you can learn about other cultures and why that's important in our community. Right. And I'll just end with, and you hit it dead on, the more we learn, it does make our culture richer, much, much richer. And as you've seen downtown, we're about to build that amphitheater. I hope we have a lot of cultural festivals out there. I think that's going to be a great venue to do that.
Great venue for that.
And you know, I just think we can have Hispanic music and martial. I just think we can have a lot of things going on at that facility. Yeah. So I'm excited about it. I appreciate everything that the committee did. And unless somebody else has something they want to say.
Yeah, come on up, Anita.
I have had many students ask me over and over again about the youth coalition with the city council. So please put that on the agenda at some point. They would love to be represented in the city of Enid and learn more, especially since Whitney helped develop a civics class and lessons, and the youth at Enid High are very excited.
Good.
So we're looking forward to working with the city of Enid.
Very good. Thank you.
I also just wanted to, I hope I don't embarrass her, but Raquel Gamilio, she was very instrumental in this. And she planted a seed. And it's just a blessing to see it, to grow to where it's at. So I didn't want to embarrass you, but I was remiss not to say something. So I want to say thank you.
Okay. All right. How long will your,
I don't think it should be too long. I can make it quick.
okay. You want to keep going, don't you? All right, I will go to 3.4. Discuss proposed changes to the ordinance concerning food service establishments, including permit requirements and procedures for food truck to incorporate new state law regulations. Melissa?
All right. Thank you, Mayor, Board of Commissioners. Thank you for letting me come and talk about this again. If you'll recall, there were a few meetings ago that I gave a legislative update. The food truck legislation was one of the things that I mentioned. We have had some time now to go through the state legislation, sift through all the things that the state has passed at their level, and then address those things within our city code. And so I'm going to go through some of the things that the state is now requiring, some changes that they've made to the regulation. It's been shifted greatly to the state level, hence the title Food Truck Freedom Act. So shifting to the state level, but they've still left a lot of leeway, I guess, in some ways for the city, the municipalities, to regulate food trucks. So what we've tried to do is make sure that we're consistent with the state requirements, and then also add a couple of things so that the definitions are also mirrored by our code and the state code, and then change our permit processes just a little bit so that we haven't eliminated the requirement for permits, but it will mirror much with what the state has required, so that food truck operators, when they come into our city, they will hopefully know what we're requiring, because it's primarily the same as what the state is requiring. So I'll go through these two bills that were passed. They were both effective November 1st. So the state legislation was passed, the Food Truck Freedom Act, and like I said, it's kind of the idea behind it was to allow food truck operators to operate within the state, go across municipal borders, not have so many different requirements. And I think that will affect us a little bit, but I'm thinking it might have primarily been some of the areas like in Oklahoma City, Tulsa, where you've got a whole lot of municipalities bordering each other, and so these food truck operators were having to deal with different codes across those municipalities if they operated in those areas. So the freedom is, like I mentioned, the subject rules now are promulgated by the State Commissioner of Health. They're going to pass most of the rules. There are licensing and permit requirements, and then it shifts a lot of the other things from the local fire marshal to the state fire marshal as well. So that uniformity is what they're looking for. Some general provisions of House Bill 2459. This was primarily for the fire marshal. It applies to mobile food vendors that are capable of producing smoke or grease-laden vapors, or those vehicles utilizing electric energy, liquefied petroleum gas, compressed natural gas, or a combination of those things. So it's very specific, but it requires them to be compliant with the adopted fire codes. The state fire marshal then now has the jurisdiction to come out and to regulate those and do inspections. It still allows municipalities to enforce permits, operational fees, land use regulations, zoning, other things that we can do, but it's going to shift the primary responsibility for those inspections and enforcement to the state fire marshal. The other is the actual Food Truck Freedom Act. It requires those mobile food vendors to have a food establishment license required in Title 63 of the state statutes, and they are then required to provide a copy of that to the local municipality. So we're essentially looking at that saying, okay, we are recognizing that you are licensed already with the state, and so we receive that state license, and then we verify compliance with the state license as well as whatever other maybe additional requirements we have, but nothing that's inconsistent with the state requirements. So we're not required now to have any kind of local permitting. So we could have just kind of stripped that out of our code. We've decided to recommend not to strip it out of our code, but to make the things that are in our code consistent with the state requirements instead. and you'll see a few of those things. So I'm not going to read through all of these. You can look at those, but in the legislation, there are, I think, 8, I'll go to the next one, 8 things that the municipalities may do. So it tells us we may do certain things, we still may investigate, we may report those things, we can enforce any kind of regulations, and the primary focus, which is most of what we do anyway, is to focus on public health and safety risks. So it eliminates a lot of those other things, but there are twice as many in the state statute that says municipalities may not do these things. So there is a list of those things. We can't prohibit those food vendors from operating in our jurisdiction if they have the license by the state, and if they're in compliance, we can't prohibit that. We cannot require a license unless we're doing 3 primary things. So these are the primary things we're looking at. We are recognizing the state license, as I mentioned before. We are requiring them to get a permit for an event that is permitted also by the local authority, so some kind of an event, a festival, something else that requires that permit, special events permits, which we have code that covers those things, or they're actually seeking a food establishment license, which is different from the mobile food vendor license. We may not require them, if they are operating on private property, to gain permission of if they have permission to be a specific distance from other commercial or retail establishments. So we can't restrict, I guess, the locations where they are if they are on our private property. We cannot require them to enter into an agreement with a commercial food or retail establishment. We cannot require them to be fingerprinted or install GPS tracking devices. I don't know why we would want to go to that lengths, but we cannot do that. There may have been other municipalities doing that. I'm not sure where that came from. We can't require them to stay in constant motion except for when serving customers. In a couple of circumstances, we can't require them to have insurance or a bond unless they are operating at an event sponsored by the city or operating in a local or public park. So those are the exceptions there. We can't require them to submit to additional health inspections because they're already getting those at the state level. We can't require them to do anything more unless it's a part of an investigation. So we do have that authority to investigate foodborne illnesses or anything that's going to cause a safety precaution for our citizens. But we can't do anything extra on top of that, and we can't charge them fees for any additional health inspections that we cannot conduct in the first place. Beyond the administrative cost of issuing the local license, we cannot charge a fee. So this is something you'll see that we've amended. Currently, it's a $75 fee for a 1-year license. We have stripped that down and are recommending about a $15 fee for an annual license. That's something we can talk about internally just to make sure, and I'll talk with Summer as well, to make sure that that is the administrative cost that we need for that. There's nothing in the statute that says what the administrative cost is and what that calculation is to be, so that's something internally that we can decide. We cannot require any additional state fire inspections if they've already been given the permit and the little decal from the state fire inspector, the state fire marshal, within the last 12 months. We can't, again, require them to enter into any agreements with commercial establishments or restaurants. We can't regulate the equipment. There were quite a few things in our existing code where we would go and check on vehicles and look at the equipment of those vehicles. We've stricken all of that because that's no longer something that we are able to look into. We would just then need to report any kind of violations that we think are existing to the State Department of Health. We can't require them to associate with a commissary if they have all the equipment necessary within their vehicles. So all of that to say that the proposed amendments, essentially, there are going to be amended definitions. If you've looked at the draft that is in your materials, there are some amended definitions. Primarily, those are to mirror the state definitions. So we had a mobile food vendor definition and a mobile food vehicle definition that slightly differed from what the new state definitions are. So we've changed those so that they're exactly the same. We've added a definition for a temporary mass gathering. This is something that was new new in the state legislation. That is an actual or reasonably anticipated assembly on public or private property of 300 or more people for an event that continues or reasonably can be expected to continue for 2 or more hours a day. So this is something we've added because there are specific notice requirements by the state legislation, and we've added that in. There's a 10-day notice requirement, so if a food truck is going to operate at one of these temporary mass gatherings, they have to provide the city with notice that they will be at that event within 10 days of the event. So that's an extra thing they've added in that was not a part of our code. And then there are some comprehensive changes. It looks like a lot of changes if you look at the draft that we've provided. But like I said, once we get a clean copy, it's essentially striking out a lot of those things that we may not do and then ensuring that the other things are consistent with what the state is going to require. And anything that we've left in is going to focus on public health or safety risks. So I've mentioned some of these things here. So the changes to the type of license, there's still an annual license, currently $75. We're recommending $15 for that. There was a 6-month license. We're eliminating that type of license. And then there was a single event license, and we have now separated that out into 3 categories of single event license to be consistent. So there's a single private event license, a single special event license, and that is where you must comply with the special event code. That's in Title I, Chapter 15. And then we've added that single temporary mass gathering event. And so for those, it's essentially a $5 license. It would be noticed that you are going to be operating within the city on that one incident. So in my opinion, it might be great for these operators to just obtain the $15 annual license and then just provide us notice of where they will be operating throughout the year. So it would be up to them to decide how they're going to do that. We would require the applicants to provide those locations, duration of operation when they file their application. We'll be looking at the application form and making some changes accordingly. And then if they are going to add an event, change anything, then essentially they could just notify the city clerk that they have a change within their annual license. So those are the recommendations. We can pull up the ordinance if you have questions about that. We're hoping that we could get some feedback from you all, talk internally to code, city clerk, any others, about changes to the draft that we've provided, the suggestions and recommendations we've made, and then we'll bring it back at another meeting for an official vote.
Cool. Questions? No?
Have you talked to any food vendors? I mean, is it a big deal to them?
I have not talked to them. I don't know if anybody else has heard from them. I know the fire department has worked with some initially just because of the new fire marshal inspection regulations.
Yes, ours, Prevention Division, all of our fire marshals work closely with the State Fire Marshal's Office. You know, the State Fire Marshal's Office only has like 5 field agents for the entire state. So those 5 guys had to go all over the state of Oklahoma to get all of these food trucks in every community inspected and licensed. Excuse me?
Each year?
Yes. Well, the first one, as you can imagine, would be especially interesting. Yeah. So our guys went out and they helped the State Fire Marshal's Office make contact with each and every one of the ones that we know that operate in our area and got them all together and helped them search them out so that they all could be compliant this first time and understand the rules and things like that. So through that process, they had great interaction. They said they had a couple concerns, a lot of questions, things like that. But in the end, every one of them that operate in the Enid area complied easily, and we're happy with the process. The rules are a little bit more lenient than they used to be. I think the real question now remains how the state is going to handle the natural gas, LP gas concern, and their code changes in the future. So for those food trucks that are stationary, I don't know, that part of the definition is a little bit foggy, but as they deal with that in the future, we'll make adjustments. But right now for us, if they have a sticker, they're compliant with the state, and so that's all we're worried about. But the process went pretty well.
Melissa, one quick question. We don't currently, that I'm aware of, have any city-owned hookups, electrical hookups for them. They usually carry their own generator and they do that. I've talked to some mayors in some other cities, and I think we're about to have this situation come up at the amphitheater where park, we've closed, and we're going to set that up where we can have food trucks down that area, and we may run some electrical so that they can plug up, because the generators are so loud when they run. Are we going to be able, or even at the ballpark, and I know everybody goes, well, we're going to have a concession stand, but there will be corporate events out there that you don't want to open the whole concession stand up, that some of these other communities are just having, they hire a food truck to come in and cater that for a corporate event. But are we going to have in here the ability to charge a hookup fee to our services, or have we thought about that yet, or?
I haven't thought about that. There are conversations in other municipalities, just like you've heard from others. Mandy and I have heard from other city attorneys talking about this and making the changes. So there are a lot of ideas out there. There was something in here about the ability to, we may do something with metered parking. So I'm not sure if this would be what you're asking, but on number 4 there, it says municipalities may develop a mobile food vendor metered parking pass for a fee that permits a mobile food vendor to operate from metered parking spaces for longer than they would otherwise be operated. I don't know if that's what they're envisioning there or not, but that's definitely something we should look at, some opportunities. Zoning is another thing. I know there's some examples of others that have kind of zoned certain areas specifically for food truck use. And so those are the exact types of ideas that we'd like to hear. So we can incorporate those now, or it can be something we can add at a later date once we've kind of hashed out how we want that to work. But that's a really good question.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions, concerns? So for the youth build, so you know, I'm about to adjourn the study session, and then at 6:35, we're going to pick back up. That gives everybody time to have a little break. And just so you know, if you look at the I told you before we started that we don't take votes during this, so we can't take a vote to even adjourn. So I'm just going to adjourn us, but at the end of our regular session, you'll see me take a vote on that before I can adjourn. So with that being said, we are adjourned till 6:35. Great.